Hey guys, it's Ray and welcome back to my channel. And in today's video, we're going to take it nice and slow, and I'm going to show you guys how I personally blend my colored pencils. All of my exact products will be listed down below. So I'm going to be using Crayola colored pencils, Prismacolor colored pencils, a mechanical pencil, nothing too fancy, just a dollar store one, an eraser tool to erase, and of course, the infamous Tortillon, or blending tool, or Tortillon, depending on where you live. Basically, a paper blending tool. So sit back, relax, and hopefully you guys can gain a little tip or two. So without further ado, let's start the video. Step number 1, numero uno, the first thing I did was sketch out the apple outline, which I'm going to later fill in with colored pencils, and I'm also going to sketch out the shadow that's casted by the apple. And my next step is to get my favorite thing in the world, Crayola colored pencils, and start a light layer of red. And the reason I always start off with my baby love Crayola, it's because it's less pigmented and less waxy, so I can build up the color, unlike Prismacolor, which is really pigmented right off the bat. Which isn't bad necessarily, it's just really hard to build up, especially if you're going to be doing like layer after layer after layer, because then you're going to end up with like this really intense amount of wax and pigment on a page, and I personally don't like to start off with that. I'm not even kidding you, like if I use just Prismacolors, I'm going to end up with this like muddy mess. But hey, you do you, boo-boo. This is just how I personally do colored pencils. Alright, cool. So now that we have a nice little base layer going, I'm getting my white Prismacolor colored pencil, and I'm going to be working on the areas that are going to be almost pure white and pure white. And I personally like to do it probably in the first few steps because, again, I like make a mess whenever I color, so it just helps me later in the long run to keep the white shiny spots white and shiny. So now that we have a good base layer going, your girl is going to start off with the color layers next. And what that means is that the apple isn't just red. It has like other colors in it too. So I'm going to be adding in your yellows, your greens, your blues, purples, all that fancy stuff to make it look more realistic and give it more of a vibrant, natural color. I know it sounds kind of crazy to add other colors to a red apple, but it's just for me to bring out vibrancy. And it's also a way to bring out highlights and shadows without having to use white and black. I definitely recommend checking out portrait artists who specialize in colored pencils. They use the craziest colors for skin tone, like hot green, hot pink, blue, like crazy colors you would never expect. And by the time they're done, it turns out so good. And here I want to build up the shadows, so instead of using black, I'm using blue, and it's kind of like a vibrant way to use a shadow instead of just putting pure black. Now we're on to what I'd like to call the sandwich phase. So think of red as bread, and think of all the colors I just used as the inside, like the fillings and lettuce and stuff. Alright, so first layer you got the bread, second layer you got the fillings, and on top of that you're putting red again, like a sandwich. And the reason I'm mixing red with everything is just to give it more true to life colors. I know it can seem kind of complicated at first if you're new to color building, but it's really simple once you get all the colors down. So again, you see that yellow, that is where the highlight is, where I'm putting the blue is where the shadow is, and then right in the middle is that perfect amount of just pure red. So see, you got this. It's not that hard. You just got to figure out what the highlight color is and what the shadow color will be. We're almost done with the Crayola layer, and I'm just going to be layering and adding more buildup. So I'm going to speed up the video, and I will meet you at the next step. Now it's time for the Prismacolor to shine. So basically what I'm doing is getting that red Prismacolor, and I'm putting a heavy layer on the midtones, aka the areas that I know are pure red. And I can just tell the difference between the Crayola pigment and the Prismacolor pigment, because the Prismacolor pigment is like BAM! Like right in your face. It's awesome. The Prismacolor step is actually going to be repetitive as the last one because I'm doing the exact same thing, which is color buildup with the yellow, the red, and the blue. Now, if you want to layer Crayola on top of Prismacolor, be aware it's a little bit more trickier because there's a lot of wax when it comes to Prismacolor, so it's a little bit harder to layer it, especially with something with less pigment like Crayola. So I guess every single colored pencil you come in contact with, like no matter what, you're going to want to practice and see how the texture is, how it layers, and I had to put on a podcast. And of course, I'm going to listen to my favorite podcast, Stuff You Should Know. Now back to the drawing. I'm not worried about super amazing detail just yet, because later I'm going to go in with a blender, and that, my friend, just going to make everything look so much better. And then on top of that, I'm going to detail. Okay, on to my weird way of blending. So what I like to do is get a really cheap white colored pencil from like the dollar store. Like any super cheap one will probably work. And I like to blend with that. The reason I like to blend with a super cheap colored pencil is because A, it's probably going to be full of fillers, which means it's going to be very waxy, and B, there's probably not going to be a lot of pigment, so it won't drain out your colors. And don't get me wrong, I know there's like tons of ways to blend colored pencils. Specifically, they have like these colorless blenders, and I just don't like those. I don't know, something about them, it just makes them hard to blend, you can't erase them, and it gives the paper like this weird shiny texture. I don't know, I just like to use a cheap colored pencil. The next thing I like to do is I like to get the back of a tortillon, and as you can see, I'm using like the flat of the tortillon to blend out all the Prismacolor pigment. And believe it or not, yes, you can blend out colored pencils. Not as easy as you would with graphite, but it works really well in my opinion. And of course, if I don't like some of the buildup or if some of the blending drained out some of the color, I'll just go in there one more time or 50 more times, depending on how I feel, with more color buildup. And don't get me wrong, you don't have to use like a pure white color to blend. If you're working with shadows, use like a dark red. That's what I'm doing to blend. I'm using other colors to blend instead of just white. I mean, given white is pretty much almost what I always use to blend, but sometimes that just won't work. So feel free to use whatever colors you want to blend out your shadows. The world is your oyster. And of course, I get dumb comments telling me, well, you don't know how to use this, you don't know how to make that, this is wrong, this is bad, blah, 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 But who cares? Honestly, you guys create whatever you want to make with art. Don't listen to what anybody else says unless you guys are wanting, constructive criticisms. But other than that, you guys improve your art. You guys make whatever you want to make. This is art. This is an expression. This is like humanity at one of its rawest forms. And honestly, you guys can create anything that you want. You guys can do anything that you want. And I love seeing all your different art styles and all your personalities. And it's just incredible. And it's such a gift. So don't let anybody put you down. So I guess the quote is, you do you. And I'm going to stop here, but just know that I'm behind you every single step of the way. At this point, I'm just going to work on the stem and the pain in the butt that was the leaf. I kid you not, I struggled with the leaf so much, and the reason for that is because the actual leaf was crumpled and it was a mess, but I think it came out alright. So anyway, I'm gonna fast forward. You guys can check out the horrible leaf problem, and I will see you when I get to shadows. and I keep putting my head in the shot, and that's because I was getting really frustrated with it. Like, I couldn't decide if I wanted it alive or if I should keep drawing it dead. But anyway, it came out alright. That's all that matters with it, and I'm happy. Moving on to shadows, usually I would do like a nice little wash of gray, but I wanted to really emphasize that shadow. So I'm getting a graphite mechanical pencil, blending that out, and I'm going in with another layer of, I think that was Crayola Prismacolor, and just putting in a nice dark layer of shadows. Even now, I am almost done with this whole entire video recording and editing, and I'm still looking at it like, should I add more? Should I add less? What should I do to the shadows? Should I, and that's just how I am. I am super picky when it comes to my artwork, and I will mess with it until I completely ruin it. And that's just, I don't know, that's just how I am. I'm such a perfectionist, and I'm always thinking like, what if, and I'm always trying to like push my boundaries and experiment, and I don't know. If you watch me, you watch my channel, you guys know that's how I am. Anyway, the only thing left to do now is just kind of fix the shadows and fix some of the detail. And how I'm doing that is just adding in some texture, some lines, some dots, and give it just a more realistic look to it. That way it's just not pure super shiny, even though apples are super shiny. But other than that, guys, we are done with my blending techniques. Alright, here is the final color corrected tweaked image that I ended up doing a little bit more stuff to it. I hope you guys enjoy it. And of course, this is my interpretation and this is my style. And I want to know, how do you blend colored pencils? Anyway, guys, if you want to follow me on Instagram, you can see all my artwork, both old and new. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, that's pretty much my word vomit. Anyway, guys, I love you and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon.